Hello everyone, and today is a really exciting video because it is a collab with my beautiful friend Emily from Emily's Makeup Bag. And if you don't watch Emily's videos, you really need to check them out. She posts a lot of content. I think she posts 3 times a week, and she has some really great video ideas. I think if you like Kelly Gooch, Samantha March type of content, you would really like her. And she's really down to earth. She's a beautiful, I just love watching her content. And she also has an Instagram, which is just amazing, and if you don't watch her, you really should. She's a really sweet person, and I'm excited because this is our first collab together, and it's crazy. I didn't think I would ever be like friends with her, but I'm really glad I am because she is so sweet, so easy to talk to, always so happy and excited about makeup. She does gorgeous eye looks. She does like a 3 or 5 looks, 1 palette. I think she does 5, and she posts it on her Instagram originally, but now she does it on her YouTube, and she does such great eye looks. So she's definitely gonna have some more unique palette choices in this video. But first and foremost, if you don't follow her, you need to go subscribe to her and follow her Instagram because I love her so much, and you guys all need to check her out. But today we are doing a video inspired by Samantha March. I don't know if she collabed with someone else to do this video. Feel like she definitely did, but I will link the original videos down below. But it's top palettes in my collection. I think she did top 10 high-end palettes, and we're gonna do top 5 just because we have smaller collections than Samantha March. So top 10 just kind of feels like putting all of our palettes in a video. So we did top 5. I'm excited to see her picks because we definitely have very different eyeshadow collections and just different collections in general. I don't know, when I was picking out my palettes, it was kind of hard, but also I haven't really been into palettes lately, so it was kind of easy. So I picked my top 5 palettes that I'm really into right now. They're kind of boring. I definitely didn't pick palettes that I thought I would pick, but these are like the ones that if right now, if I could only keep 5, I could easily keep these 5 and probably wouldn't miss the rest of my palettes, which makes me feel like I needed to do a declutter. I'm tripping over my words, I'm sorry. And I'm also wearing the same shirt in the last 3 videos that I filmed. Let's just get into it. The first one that I'm going to mention has a very temporary spot on this list because I literally just got this palette. I decided to pick the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. I think Emily has this palette as well and has done really beautiful looks with this, and I've literally used this once. I used it today. I think I should have a look up on this soon, but I just used like this brown, this deeper terracotta color, and then gold glitch. But the reason I picked this palette is just because it's really neutral and everyday, and you have some staple mattes in here, but you still get some really fun shimmers. And when I looked at all the rest of my palettes, I just felt, I don't know, I either felt overwhelmed by so many bright or deep colors or just didn't feel inspired. And I don't know if this one is going to always be my favorite over like some of my Natasha Denona ones, but just at this moment I'm feeling more inspired by this palette than most of the other palettes in my collection, and the formula is really nice. The shimmers are more like a creamy shimmer, which is really nice. I wasn't expecting it. It's like a super shock shadow in the pan almost, and I just love how light this is because it makes it very approachable for every day, but they're still colorful. So I can do like light pink, and it's still going to be really colorful, but it's not going to be too bold. You could definitely go more bold, and like there's blues in here, but just for me, this is still a perfect palette that I feel like I could use every day, but still get inspired and do a different look every day. I definitely want to do a 1 week with this palette, like a 1 week 1 palette with this, because there's just so many looks that I know I could do with just this color story, and I think it's very unique. Again, a very temporary spot because I literally just bought this palette. But when I was looking at my palette drawer, I picked out the first 4 and I was like, I don't know. I don't really see anything else that I would feel like I would like more than this, which is a bit shocking because I think you guys are going to be surprised that I'm not including a few of the palettes that I have in my collection in here. But yeah, this one, I'm not necessarily listing them because I don't know where I'd put this one, but this one is at the bottom of my list just because it is so new. Okay, next I'm going to talk about my Natasha Denona palette pick. And I only picked 1 Natasha Denona palette, and I own 5 Natasha Denona palettes, and I absolutely love them. But when I looked at them, I was like, I don't know what I would pick to say as my top palette. Not necessarily I'm getting rid of all of my palettes. I don't know, I felt like I should pick something where I could use it a lot and still be in love and inspired with it, and just something that I know I cannot let go for my collection. So I picked my Tropic, and I feel like for a little while I kind of fell out of love with this because the other Natasha Denona palettes are so much brighter. They have so many fun shimmers. They have a cool, interesting color story, but this one is my most used Natasha Denona palette, and it's so boring, but it's so underrated. This is such a good palette, especially because I wear singles so often, that this is like probably my most used palette, because this is such a good companion palette. It literally has any matte color that you could ever want, because a lot of my palettes don't have browns and pinks, and I have pinky single eyeshadows. So something like the Makeup by Mario palette doesn't have any pinky shimmers that I want to put in the crease, and Vintage Taupe right here is the perfect crease shade on my skin tone, especially for like a taupey rose color. And admittedly, I don't use this bottom row a whole lot, but I picked this palette, this boring matte palette that I really just use like the matte browns and the matte pinks, because I still love it so much. I think I would rather get rid of my other Natasha Denona palettes before I got rid of this one, which is so surprising, because this is the most perfect matte palette that I've ever seen, and I can still have a lot of fun with this palette even if it's by itself, but especially in companion with my other singles or palettes. This is just so good. It's so underrated too. So many people hate on this, but it's really so underrated if you like to do really simple looks, which I do. And I really like this little quad here. Peach Puff I wore a lot last summer, and I don't know, y'all, it's not the most interesting palette, and I always will reach for something else when I use this, but it's the perfect companion palette for my singles, and it's still really pretty. I don't know what else to say, but I don't think many people are surprised about this, because I have raved about this palette a ton, and if you're boring like me, I think this is a really great palette. It's not available anymore, so I'm sorry for putting it in this video, but I think fellow boring but slightly colorful but still pretty light eyeshadow lovers will understand why I chose this palette. It is so good. I got this half off, by the way, so it was $60, something like that, versus the $130. This is too boring of a palette to buy for $130, but it is so massive that I will never run out of these shades. I had one of these in a Panda's eyeshadows, and I literally made no progress on it. Okay, number 3. I didn't know I was numbering these, but I don't think 2 of these will be surprising at all. I'm gonna go with this one. Number 3 is going to be the Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity Luxe Quad in the shade Fleur Fantasia. This video feels kind of useless because I feel like anyone who's watched at least one of my videos probably can guess this, but this side of the quad is what dreams are made of. I love this purple shimmer. It shifts purple and blue, but it's like a satin, which, oh my gosh, a purple satin I didn't know I would love so much. This one is more of an impactful pink, as you can kind of tell, but a satin purple, it looks like a neutral. It definitely doesn't, but on my eyes it doesn't look like I'm wearing a super colorful shade. This shade will make me feel prettier than any other makeup has ever made me feel. When I wear the shade, you literally cannot knock me down. And definitely not the most interesting palette, which is why if I had to only keep 5 eyeshadow palettes, I don't know if this would probably make it in here, but like, it's not a super versatile palette. I mean, it's 4 colors, but as far as like my top eyeshadow picks, this one is definitely in it. And you guys know my love for this one. It's so good. I think it's on sale still from Pat McGrath. It's so good. It's not like anything worth $50 or whatever it's worth, but I still just, now that I own it and I don't have to think about the price, this purple shimmer is just so good. Okay, and my number 2, not surprising at all as well, it's the M Cosmetics Divine Skies eyeshadow palette. I think Emily just got this one, and I'm curious to see if she's loving it, but even though this is more of an everyday palette for me, and it's definitely not the most exciting color story, it's still my favorite eyeshadow palette because I don't feel like I have to do something dramatic. I feel like I can just do something very light, and I just realized that I love light eyeshadow looks. I mean, it's no surprise based on what I wear, and I still love eyeshadow, but I feel like me letting myself reach for singles every day, a single is just a sheer or light eyeshadow color. It's made me realize just how much happier I am just doing something light. Even if I still spend some time on my eyeshadow, even if I use a few different shades, letting myself just do something light just makes me feel so pretty. I feel like it flatters my super hooded eyes a lot more, and I just feel a lot more comfortable. And when I use this palette, I don't feel overwhelmed at all. I love this pinky shimmer. It shifts like gold almost, and it's just very pretty. Every single shade in this palette is pretty. The only one I don't use a ton is this matte, but it's still really nice, and I wouldn't get rid of it. It's really like the perfect 6 shades to put in this palette. Definitely a fair skin, light skin palette, but it's so pretty. And even though it is more of a boring everyday palette, I still really love the looks that I create with it, so I definitely couldn't go without putting this on its list. And I think this is one, even if I was picking 5 eyeshadow palettes that I would keep if I had to get rid of everything else, this one would still make the list because it's a small palette, yes, but it still has everything I need, versus Flor Fantasia is hard because it's a quad, so I don't know if I could say I would keep this over big palettes because that's a lot to say. But those are my favorites. And then I think you guys are going to be surprised with my number 1 spot. Actually, no, because I already told you that I didn't pick any other Natasha Denona. But my number 1 palette here, which has become my favorite palette lately because it's the palette that I want to reach for when I'm not doing singles, and it's still very neutral and light, but it's a good mix of everyday and fun, is my Pat McGrath palette. It's my Pat McGrath Divine Rose 1 palette. I had not used my Mothership palettes for a very long time, and I still haven't used this one enough. But lately I've felt so inspired by this color story because it's all of the boring neutrals that you would need for an eye look, but it's still fun. I don't know how to describe it. This light matte is very cool toned, and it took me a while to get used to it, but I found mixing this with either this pink satin or this brown satin, which you wouldn't think would work, but it's not too shimmery, so it does work. If I want to go with the pinky gold, I mix it with the pink satin, and if I want to go with this true gold, I mix it with the brown, or even just put the brown in the crease, and it really works. This palette is so fun. You could definitely do just a boring palette with it, with this, like just the boring mattes, and it's just so good because it's still so fun. And this is definitely an underrated Pat McGrath palette. I mean, I think a lot of people do love this, but I think it's the perfect palette if you just want one expensive Pat McGrath palette because you can really do so much with this color story. I mean, you can't do anything. Actually, you probably could because you didn't get your dark shades, but for me, I don't do anything super out there, but I still have a lot of fun with this palette while it's still being everyday appropriate, and just the feeling you get when you use a Pat McGrath palette is like no other because it's just so luxury feeling. It's so heavy, a beautiful component, and I just love this one so much. So those are my 5 palette picks. I was a bit surprised picking these out, that these are the ones that I picked. Oh my gosh, this is very heavy, all of these palettes. But yeah, I wonder if you guys are surprised about any of these, but honestly I feel like I'm very predictable. But I am very excited to see what Emily picks because I feel like she's a lot more fun with her eyeshadow, so she definitely has a little bit of a harder choice picking her eyeshadow palettes because she has so many beautiful ones and does so many beautiful looks. Versus me, I was like, what can I do the most boring eyeshadow looks with? That's what I'm gonna pick. So anyways, be sure to check out her video. I hope you guys enjoyed mine, even though it's probably very predictable. I will probably be doing an eyeshadow collection video somewhat soon, probably over summer. I'm gonna start up my collection series again and do blushes, bronzers, base products, palettes, and all the fun categories. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to check out Emily, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!